Shoot the Ones, weekly mixed martial arts podcast covering recent and upcoming events, news, and more. I am Dema.
And I'm Genya. In our second episode, we will be discussing UFC Fight Night 104, Bermudez vs. Korean Zombie, and next week's event, UFC 208, Holm vs. Randemie, as well as this week's MMA news.
But first, we would like to start the show by thanking all our listeners, supporters, people that were able to provide us with constructive criticism. We value all of your feedback. This week's we have our friend Zach, the sound engineer, the producer, up in the studio. We'd like to give him a shout out. What's up, Genya, my co-host?
Yo. Check him out, Deep Theory on SoundCloud.
That's our boy. All right, let's get right in this thing. Bermudez versus Korean Zombie, UFC Fight Night 104. Wasn't not the most exciting of card to say, but we did have a couple of fights that really stood out. We would like to cover those. Namely, as far as prelims concerned, the Fight Pass provided us with some really, really entertaining fights and finishes, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for me, it was a good card. It wasn't that bad of a card. It felt like it kind of dragged on. Our group of friends, we've been watching events together for, I would say, over 10 years. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, close, something like that.
And we were all watching it. We were having a good time, but at one point, like, even though I would say the fights were exciting, we were falling asleep during it just because it dragged on. But the card overall.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The problem doesn't really lie with the fights itself, but the way I think Fox has to present the show. The broadcasts themselves go as long as like 6-7 hours, and just when you hit that 3-4 hour mark, it kind of starts being difficult to stay engaged.
Alright, let's get right into it. UFC Fight Night 104, Bermudez vs. Korean Zombie. The first fight kicked off with Khalil Roundtree versus Daniel Jolly. Daniel Jolly was a hometown guy. He was real hyped coming into the ring, and this fight did not last long. A knee to the face within 52 seconds and ended the night for Daniel Jolly. Dema, you want to tell us a little bit about this one?
I mean, first round finish. Boy, did Khalil make me eat my words. I was not very up on him last time during last podcast, and I said something along the lines of, man, Khalil wasn't very impressive at all. This time comes out, both guys just kind of feel each other out. Daniel Jolly pushed the pace a little bit, but ultimately Khalil Roundtree was able to land that knee that finished the fight. I believe he had him in the wizard and landed the knee, and then the follow-up, the first knee looked like it really rocked Jolly, and he just followed up with a second knee after it looked like Jolly's hand touched the mat, to be honest.
Yeah, Khalil looked to be in much better shape, and we definitely underestimated him in our last podcast. It looked like he got rid of a lot of the muscle and kind of toned down, to fit the light heavyweight weight class better. Our next fight was Alex Moreno versus Nico Price. Alex Moreno looked really good through 2 rounds. He was a hometown favorite, and he was going against Nico Price, who recently has a win over Brandon Thatch. And to be honest, Moreno looked really good through 2 rounds. It looked like he was cruising to a victory, and at the very end of the round, Nico Price just slumped him. It looked like we were going to have a Masvidal Cerrone type situation where the ref, because it was right at the buzzer of the second round, it looked like they were going to, stop the fight and let him go to this corner, but Moreno was just way too slumped to get back up. I mean, he was down there for a number of minutes, and I just hope he's okay.
Just unable to get up. Vicious knockout. Hell of an exciting fight. Moreno looked like he was gonna win the fight, to be honest. First round, I believe he dropped him. He landed a crucial spinning back fist hook combination that had Nico Price just get dropped on his ass. And then I think he was fading a little bit towards the end of the second round, and Nico Price just saw it. He had his number. He pushed the pace, and right at the buzzer, he lands an uppercut kind of against the cage that dropped Morano. and he wasn't able to stand up afterwards. If he was able to stand up, the fight would have carried on into the third round, but that was it. Next, Tisha Torres defeats Beck Rawling in a unanimous decision. Back and forth fight, pretty exciting.
Yeah, I thought it was a good fight. Basically, what we predicted going in, Tisha Torres was able to use her karate style, land kicks, and edged Beck, who didn't look too bad on the feet. She was throwing good combinations, but overall, Tisha Torres and her speed advantage, I thought, won her the fight.
Ultimately, Tisha looked quicker on her feet, was able to take Beck down, kind of keep her down a few times. Her technique looked sharp.
And I found out something. I didn't know that her girlfriend was Raquel Pennington. That was part of the broadcast. That's news to me. I guess they met on Ultimate Fighter. I don't know. I don't think that's the most interesting stuff, but that's neat to me.
Right,
our next fight was Ricardo Lucas Ramos versus Michinaro Tanaka. This fight wasn't the most exciting one. Ramos got a decision. I thought it could have went to Tanaka. Close back and forth fight. Anything you want to add to that, Dema?
I don't remember much of the fight, to be honest, so we can just skip on to the next. Chas Skelly defeats Chris Grutzenmacher via textbook rear naked choke submission in second round.
This was a fun fight. I really enjoyed it. I really like watching Chas Skelly every time he fights. He's a scrappy guy. He's different than a lot of guys in that division, and he's just a problem because he's in your face with his strikes, and he's real good with transitions. He's good on the ground, and that's what the difference was in this. He was a little bit better at the scrambles like we predicted against Chris, and it won him the fight.
I feel this fight we saw more calculated Chas Skelly. He definitely took his time and worked Chris Grutzenmacher, who was able to stifle him a little bit in the first round, but ultimately Skelly's grappling is just so slick. He eventually was just able to play his ground game and his game plan perfectly.
Yeah, he tried for that choke a number of times, and when he finally got it, it was on there really tight. Next fight of the card was Curtis Blades versus Adam Milstead. This fight had an unfortunate ending. I'm wishing Adam Milstead a quick recovery, but Demo, let's go over this fight a little bit.
And that fight was a little bit hard to watch. I mean, Blades came in there. He grappled Adam Milstead to death. He was able to take him down several times, and I think during that first round is when the injury took place. I want to give credit to Zach here for calling it out. He saw. I think he tweaked his knee during one of those grappling exchanges on the ground. Kind of hard to watch. I don't think they should have sent him out in the second round.
Yeah, Zach did a good job calling it. I remember watching the fight, and he said right as Milstead tweaked his knee, you could see he was kind of what's the word, American word for this, his face. Oh God, what's the word?
He like a grimace. He
grimaced. That's the word I'm looking for. Adam Milstead kind of grimaced on his face, and you could tell something was wrong. And they replayed it at the end of the round, and it was his knee. And Zach was talking about it. He's like, "Oh, this is stupid, man. Their corner should throw in the towel. They shouldn't let this go on. He's going to ruin his career."
Yeah, he's going to further injure his knee, and that's not a good look. Knee injuries are particularly nasty as far as recovery time and being able to get back in. Curtis Blades, I think he was conscious of what was happening, and he went in there, kind of went right after the knee. Did the same thing he was doing first round, and ultimately Adam Milstead was hurt. He could not continue the bout.
Yeah, I shit you not. It was maybe 15 seconds after Zach said that he blew out his knee and kind of called it. So I wanted to shout him out on that one. That was kind of impressive. Just the time. But what I had to say about Curtis Blades, if you're a fan of wrestling, what he was doing in the first round was something to behold. It reminded me of the old Kevin Randleman when he was running through guys, just suplexing.
I mean,
them
from
over
back
his
control,
back.
he just flips him right over his shoulder like 3 times at least.
Yeah, it kind of looked like, you remember when Rory McDonald fought Nate Diaz and he was kind of throwing him around?
Yep.
It looked like a bigger version of that because these are big guys. What does Milstead weigh, like 230, 240?
Yeah, and Blades looked like he was the bigger guy. He had the size advantage.
All right, we're going to kind of go through this card a little bit quicker than we did last one, so we're going to go on to our next fight. Angela Hill versus Jessica Andrade. I'll start off. I feel like Angela Hill displayed herself pretty well. She showed her growth from Invicta. She was a big underdog, and for good reason. And what I have to say about Jessica in this fight is she really won the exchanges along the fence. And I think that was the major difference in why she won the decision. I thought it was a close fight. I thought Angela was doing really good with the knees. I thought she was doing good when the fight was in the middle of the octagon. But when it was against the fence, I fear that Andrade is one of the best women at 115 pounds against the fence at throwing punches, and she's gonna give Joanna, our champion, or the UFC's champion, a problem against the fence. I believe if they do fight.
Man, what a fight! Easily one of the best fights of the night for me. Both ladies put it out there, gave it all. Jessica Andrade ultimately proved to be the better fighter. I think she was able to impose her game plan a lot better along the fence, like you said. She was able to get the better combination strikes, as well as being able to push the pace. Angela Hill, to her credit, fought very well from the outside. Kind of displayed the classic Muay Thai stance. She was able to land some good kicks in there, as well as find home for the jab. She fought a lot better than a lot of people expected. That's why we kind of said she was a good underdog bet. But ultimately, Jessica Andrade was just able to overcome and do what she does best.
Timo, that's a really good point. This was a great fight. It was the most fun fight I had on the card. I'm pretty sure they got the award for fight of the night. They both got the bonus. In my opinion, this was the best fight on the card. It really put women's fighting in a good light. I mean, these girls both came to win, and Angela Hill, when she realized she needed a knockout, she went for that knockout. She made the fight ugly, and she made Jessica have to fight and win that #1 contendership.
All right, next fight. Marcel Fortuna defeats Anthony Hamilton by KO punch in the first round.
Nobody was expecting this one. This was a jiu-jitsu guy. Anthony Hamilton had a huge size advantage. Fortuna looked really small there. He's weighed in at 210 pounds. He told the UFC he was 230. Came in at 210 for a heavyweight fight. Hopefully we'll see him down at light heavyweight for a future, but he was throwing good strikes for a jiu-jitsu guy.
I agree. Not much to say about this fight. Both guys circled around a little bit. The guy that was supposed to have a better jiu-jitsu kind of came by and had an element of surprise in his striking. He hits Anthony Hamilton with a classic 1-2, and that was the end of the fight.
Yeah, I Wikipedia'd Fortuna before the event, and he's got a lot of jiu-jitsu accolades. He's won a lot of tournaments, so I was thinking it was going to be a jiu-jitsu match, and it ended up being a striking match where the jiu-jitsu guy won, which really baffled me, but it was a good performance. Congratulations to Fortuna.
Good knockout on Fortuna. Next fight, light heavyweights. We have Volkan Izdemir upsets Ovin St. Preux in a split decision. Man, that decision was a little bit baffling here. I gotta say, Ovin St. Preux, it was a close fight. First round, both fighters went back and forth. I think at the end of the second round and third round, Ovin St. Preux was coming out with some heat. I mean, he was throwing and hitting Izdemir over here with some heavy shots. I don't know what fight the judges were watching.
Yeah, I thought I have to agree with you. I thought the judging was a little bit of a head scratcher. I thought OSP had a lot of top game in the second round where he was punching him in the face while on top. And the third round, I thought he clearly edged it, especially getting the takedown late. First round was close, though. I could see how the judges could give Zakazan the first round. It's very possible. And I mean, my hat's off to Zakazan. Nobody really thought he was going to do that well, and Zakazan got his first win in the UFC. And he's everybody's cousin. We like him.
Everyone's a cousin. Volkan, for his UFC debut, did pretty well. I would arguably say he probably won the first round. But as far as the judging for the later rounds, I'm a little bit baffled by that.
And
both fighters did good. We just don't agree with the decision necessarily.
And his striking looked good. I mean, wouldn't you agree he's a guy that you're kind of a little bit excited to see in the future at that weight class, rather?
Yeah, light heavyweights needs more people, needs more prospects. I think he's a guy that will put on a few more exciting fights in the future.
All right, let's dive right into this next one. James Vick versus Abel Trujillo. And not a whole lot to say about this one besides James Vick was really impressive. He was using his length brilliantly. He had a huge size advantage over Trujillo. Trujillo did hit him once or twice in some combinations and never really had Vick hurt. But when it got to the grappling, Vick really proved his dominance.
Trujillo came in, game as always. He was able to land some shots. Ultimately, James Vick's length posed a lot of problems for him. And ultimately, in the end, I think as Abel slowed down a little bit, he was able to catch him with that crucial Darce choke. Using his longer limbs and his technique, he was able to take that one in the very end.
Next fight, Felice Herrig upsets Alexa Grasso in a decision where Felice Herrig looked real good. Grasso, she started off real slow, and 2 rounds she kind of didn't do enough to win, and in the 3rd round she showed the prospect that she really is. Dema, would you like to discuss this one a little bit?
It seemed Alexa was very hesitant to kind of pull the trigger, and ultimately this is where Felice was able to take over and kind of win the fight there. First 2 rounds, Felice moved really well, was able to land some jabs, and kind of outworked the prospect, Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso felt like she didn't really get started until the 3rd round, and that's where we saw the combinations start to come out. That's where she gave Felice a more competitive fight. Before that, she seemed cold and was hesitant to pull the trigger.
Yeah, since her 1-year layoff, she's 2-0. One versus Kaylin Curran and now versus Alexa Grasso. I think since she didn't win the tough and she only got 1 or 2 wins on that season, I think people underestimated her abilities a little bit and forgot that she is a elite athlete for that division. I'm kind of excited to see who she fights next, and she's gonna have a hard game to figure out, but I definitely think she's beatable personally.
I think to this day, Alexa's competition wasn't quite on the level as Felice. I think Felice is a veteran, was able to go in there and just out-experience her.
Yeah, I agree with that. And in hindsight, that minus 400 line was a little bit off.
I agree. Man, the next fight, main event, Chang Sung-jung, the Korean Zombie, defeats Dennis Bermudez. KO, first round. Genya, you want to start this?
Yeah, back from 3 years. A lot of people are happy today. Korean Zombie back on top. Korean Zombie. I mean, it's rare. I remember Dominic Cruz did it, but we don't get to see guys come back from 3 years off and look that good all the time. How do you feel about it?
Chang Sung-jung, I mean, for the 3-year layoff, considering he even said in his interview he was able to train once a week, was able to get in there. He still showed what he's known for, his chin. Dennis Bermudez started off the fight well. He was able to land a couple of combinations on him, but ultimately Chang Sung-jung used his 6-inch reach advantage really well. He's fought behind the jab, and towards the end of the round, he started pressing the action, and this is where he was able to get the knockout. And do you remember the end of the fight? He kind of slipped the punch there.
Yeah, you discussed that reach advantage, and basically a big problem Bermudez has had in past fights. If you look back at Jeremy Stevens and a couple of his other fights, he comes in really slow with the jab, and his jab is, like you said, that short reach. It doesn't help him out a lot. So what happened was Bermudez came in with a jab. Chan Sung Jung expertly slipped it, and he hit after he slipped it, almost immediately he hits him with an uppercut.
Right uppercut straight to the jaw.
Turns his lights out, and to be honest, he was getting knocked around a little bit in that fight. Bermudez was showing off his power, but people kind of I don't know if they forgot, but at the same time, Korean Zombie has always shown that he's got elite level chin, if anything, and he proved it again last night.
As well as good ability to counter strike. I mean, that was clean.
Yeah, if you were to play, let me play a little matchmaker with the semifinals fight. I would like to see Alexa Grasso possibly fight Angela Hill, who also lost on this card.
That would be a good fight.
Yeah, Jessica Andrade versus maybe Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And I'm not sure about Felice Herring. Do you have any suggestions on who she might take on in that division?
Was this 115 pounds?
Which one?
Felice Herring and Alexa Grasso. 115?
Yes, this is the same division as Joanna.
So, has she ever fought Tisha?
There's Rose, there's Tisha.
Tisha just
Tisha
comes off of a win off of the same card, and maybe timing-wise, if they haven't fought before.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to see Korean Zombie versus Max Holloway, but I believe Max Holloway might be tied up.
Max Holloway's booked, yes.
I think he's tied up. Dennis Bermudez, I don't think he should hang his head on this one. I think he was looking great in there. I think he needs to work on the jab. It's kind of like, what was that fella, Stefan Struve?
Mm-hmm.
He got knocked out with 3 flying knees in like back-to-back fights. It seems the flying knee for Dennis is the jab.
Well, but jab is such a common technique that you can't abandon the jab altogether.
Yeah, but if you're looking through film of yourself and you're getting knocked out over and over using the same technique, something's got to change, or you're just stubborn.
Well, maybe in a sense he's got to take a step back and reevaluate something.
Yeah, overall, I think his game's good. He was on a win streak.
He looked good. It's anybody can get caught.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. You can't keep getting caught like that. Sometimes you gotta go back to the drawing board. Oh, it was a good fight card overall. Like I said, it dragged on a little bit. People were falling asleep on our end. Anything to add, Dema?
Yeah, a couple of decisions, part of the game, like I said in the earlier podcast. My only problem with it is the broadcast might have dragged on a little bit too long. I mean, between how many? There was like 15 fights, maybe. A long prelim card, all the advertising. They really dragged the broadcast out to be about 6-7 hours.
Dema, exciting card we got coming up next week. I'm really looking forward to it. UFC 208, Holly Holm versus Jermaine Randemie. Excellent main event, excellent main card, and it looks like we got some real fun fights on the undercard too. So let's dive right into it. Our first fight, Philip Nover versus Rick Glenn. Rick Glenn, former World Series of Fighting fighter. He had some success over there. Came over to the UFC, had his first fight with really tough Evan Dunham. And he gave a good account of himself. I think he was a little bit overmatched in that one. And this time he's got a more even matchup with Philip Nover. Demo, do you have any opinion on this one?
Philip Nover looks to be a Renzo Gracie black belt. Is a jiu-jitsu guy coming out of New York. Don't know much about him. He is best known for making it to the finals of Ultimate Fighter, Team Nog versus Team Mir. He's also a former Ring of Combat lightweight champion.
The betting line in this one is minus 225 for Rick Glenn, plus 175 for Philip Nover. I think that's pretty accurate. Glenn seems to have the more diverse striking, and he's good anywhere the fight goes. I would say Philip Nover's got the advantage on the ground. I remember when Dana White made that arrogant statement years ago that he is the future Anderson Silva. He's got Anderson Silva-like skills. I don't know about
remember that.
But I do think that he's a good opponent for Rick Glenn.
I don't remember all that, but it does seem like something Dana would say. But one of the fighters. Next fight up, welterweight, Ryan LaFleur versus Roan Carneiro. Don't know much about these guys. Do you see anything out there about either or?
Yeah, Carnero recently had a fight with Derek Brunson where Derek finished it real quick. And Ryan LaFleur is a really good fighter. I think the only fight he's got that he's lost in the UFC has been against Dema and Genya, and he had a good account for himself. He's a grappler, so it's hard to beat Dema and Genya in the grappling department.
Yeah, he's one of the best. And I mean, other than that, he's got 12 wins and 1 loss. Looks to be a really highly touted prospect coming out of New York.
And Carnero's a black belt, so this is 2 guys that are really good on the ground. I'm expecting a ground battle. LaFleur, I believe, is a little bit stronger wrestler. I would say Carnero is more accomplished in jiu-jitsu, which doesn't always mean better, but it does mean he's more accomplished. I think it should be an interesting match. Betting line on that one is Ryan LaFleur as a moderate favorite, minus 260 to Rowan Carnero as a moderate underdog at plus 200.
Right on. Moving right along. Heavyweights, Marcin Tybura. Does he have an opponent yet?
Yeah, the fight's not canceled from what I know. Who? You said Luis Henrique is out?
Luis Henrique was expected to face Tybura, but he pulled out. So it says that the search is currently underway for his replacement.
We'll keep that one quick. We'll say we're not sure if Marcin Tybura versus Henrique is even happening.
Right?
So we're not gonna predict that one.
Is Ian McCall fighting?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that fight is
versus Jared Brooks.
Jared Brooks is the replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a betting line for that?
Yeah.
Excited to see Ian McCall make his return. He's one of the more exciting fighters in the flyweight division.
He's facing 12-0 Jared Brooks, who I know very little about, but he's got a real impressive record. He's got a cool nickname like Zakazim that we went over with earlier.
What's his nickname?
His nickname is the Monkey God.
The Monkey God.
I believe he's the first Monkey God I've heard of, so he's got points on originality.
Instant fan favorite.
Yeah, 12-0. So he's obviously got some good skills. 2 knockout finishes, 5 submissions, and 5 decision wins.
And the hat is off to him for stepping in on late notice to fight a veteran like Ian McCall.
Yeah, no, apparently the odds makers have it real close, plus 105 to minus 135. So apparently Jared Brooks might be a guy I need to go watch some tape on and learn a little bit about.
I hear you. So next fight, lightweight, Nick Lentz is fighting Islam Makhachev.
Mm-hmm. This is an interesting fight. Let me check my phone real quick to see who he fought last. Oh God, I always butcher his name. Islam. Let's just go with Islam. Islam, in his last fight, he beat Chris Wade, and Chris Wade is an excellent wrestler, and he dominated him in using his sambo, and was a whole lot better. He basically out-wrestled the wrestler. And I don't see the styles in this fight being a whole lot different. Nick Lentz is an excellent American wrestler. Usually beats guys by outpacing them, by bringing a little bit more. He just wants to win more than his opponents. And I think Islam is again, me and Dema are very biased towards our Russian fighters. But I think Islam has the sambo game will stifle Nick Lentz. And the betting line kind of shows that with Islam being a slight favorite at minus 190 to Nick Lentz plus 155.
So real quick, my take on this fight looks to be like a display of wrestling versus your traditional Russian sambo. Islam came in, didn't have a very good showing in his first fight in the UFC. I believe he got knocked out, but anybody can get caught. He's got a good team. I think he's fighting from Eagle MMA, which is Khabib's team, and he's under his dad as his trainer. So he has some accolades as far as Master of Sports in Sambo and things like that. So kind of exciting to see this one. It's going to be wrestling versus Sambo, like I said.
Next we got what was supposed to be title challenger Wilson Hayes, but then they did that weird Ultimate Fighter, and somehow he lost his contendership, and now he's without losing. He never lost a fight. He looked good. But
That was strange.
now he's going even back further down the totem pole, and he's fighting Yuta Sasaki.
Ulka Sasaki?
Yuta Sasaki. He's a big favorite. Something like minus 600. Let me check the line real quick. Minus 600 to plus 400. Of course, subject to change like any betting line. I don't think Yuta Sasaki is that bad.
Got a good record.
But I do think Wilson Hayes is really good.
It's just the level of competition in Japan might not be on par with MMA competition overseas, America.
Yeah, and you
Brazil.
know how some guys are good at jiu-jitsu at that weight class?
Mm-hmm.
There's different levels to this shit, you know what I mean? There's Yuta Sasaka might be okay at jiu-jitsu, but is he going to submit Wilson Hayes? I put my house down on it that he didn't. You know what I mean? He's not going to so you're the way you got to beat Wilson Hayes is you have to knock him out. Otherwise, you're not submitting him. He's going to be a pit bull the whole time. He's like the male form of Jessica Andrade.
It's kind of hard to make a prediction with this fight. Don't know when you don't know much about one of the fighters. Wilson Hayes probably is the favorite fighter to win.
Yeah, he's minus 600.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's huge.
Yeah, Utah. He's got a UFC body of work, so you can't say we don't know him. He's fought. He won his first fight in the UFC against Delorme. He got a submission rear naked choke. He fought Issa in his second fight. He got submitted with a neck crank. He fought French striker Taylor Lapillus in his third fight. He got knocked out, and then he fought Willie Gates, who's journeyman but a decent fighter, and he won submission rear naked choke in his last fight. None of that tells me that he's gonna have success against Wilson Hayes. I've been wrong on fights before. The full disclosure, the last card was probably one of my worst gambled cards since I've been gambling MMA for 14 years.
Oh yeah, but we were completely off as far as predictions last week.
I bombed.
But again, so were many other so-called experts. Nobody, for example, saw the Felice Herring upset. Nobody expected the decision Cousin over OSP was an odd one.
Yeah, and even some of the ones I predicted right, I bet against myself for the value, and I lost those as well. Sometimes I get lucky on those, and that's what I'm hoping for, but didn't work out this time. At the beginning of the night, I had roughly like $50, $60 in my account. I ended with $1.22.
I mean, and Angela Hill was a good bet. She was way more competitive than the odds looked.
Absolutely.
So let's get back into it. Next fight, welterweights. We have a Randy Brown versus Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah, just recently announced fight from what I understand. This isn't even on the Sherdog card yet, but it is a fight announced, and they do have betting lines on it.
So this was because of a fallout. George Sullivan was scheduled to face Randy Brown, but there was something with a USADA.
Exactly, yeah. Sullivan got pulled, and Bilal stepped up, took the fight. Even money fight, pretty much. Randy Brown minus 130, Bilal Muhammad even money. I think the line is like that because Randy Brown's looked pretty good lately, and Bilal Muhammad, who knocked him out? Somebody knocked him out really bad in his last fight. Do you have that up by chance?
He was Vicente Luque.
Vicente Luque, yeah, which I like Luque. He's a good prospect, but Bilal Muhammad, who's usually got a good chin, he got knocked out real quick that fight, and it worries you a little bit coming into this fight because Randy Brown is a little bit of a striker. Long guy should create problems.
Would you give Randy Brown an advantage because Bilal is a last-minute replacement, so to speak?
I think that this is pretty much... I think that the odds makers have it right. I think it's a pretty even fight. Who comes in better on that night's going to win. Muhammad has looked a little bit slicker in his showings, while Randy Brown kind of got the fast forward route to the UFC. Dana White caught him on looking for a fighter. And, hey, Randy, we got you, man. Come on.
Yep, if Dana White likes you, you're going to stick around.
And he's had some good fights, though, in the UFC. So a couple that I thought he might lose. And he's come away victorious in all of them. So I don't see why he doesn't have a good possibility to beat Belal this time, but I do think there's no reason to underestimate Belal and expect a victory from Randy either.
Would you say Belal is a step up in competition from George Sullivan?
Absolutely. Absolutely. George Sullivan doesn't offer a lot. But the thing about George Sullivan, which is very true about Belal also, is George Sullivan's a gamer. He's not a specialist in very many departments, but he's there to win.
So he's well-rounded?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say all that. I think that, like, you know how some guys will beat themselves?
Mm-hmm.
George Sullivan doesn't beat himself. The other guy has to actually beat him.
Gotcha. So fights intelligently, doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I think he comes in there to display the best George Sullivan. And you can say the same about Muhammad. Muhammad is going to come up and be able to display his skills. I don't think because he got knocked out last fight, his chin's deteriorating or anything crazy like that. Because he's shown a pretty good chin throughout his career, but he did get knocked out real quick, so we got to look out for that as well. Very
true. All right, moving on. Lightweight, we have Dustin Poirier against Jim Miller.
Good fight. I was a little bit surprised to see the betting line. It has Dustin Poirier as a heavy favorite, minus 350 to Jim Miller, plus 265. I know Miller's on the tail end of his career, but I don't think he should be this big of an underdog to Poirier. I think it's a good fight, man. But both guys, I think, will be able to get each other in trouble.
Something to consider. Jim Miller has been on the up and up. I think he won his last 3 fights, if I'm correct. While Dustin Poirier is coming off against a knockout against Michael Johnson. We haven't seen him for a few months since then. But to go back to your point, we don't necessarily agree with the lines. Jim Miller is, even though he's older, he has kind of been riding a 3-win streak, whereas, as I just mentioned, Dustin Poirier has just been knocked out.
Excellent point, Dema. And those 3 guys, you were right about the 3 wins in a row. After losing a decision to Diego Sanchez, he beat Gomi, Joe Loizon, butchered that name right there, Joe Loizon, and Thiago Alves. 3 good opponents.
So all in all, good fight. Looking forward to this one. Jim Miller on the up and up. Dustin Poirier, we'll see how he comes off of his loss against Michael Johnson. Excited to see both guys.
I agree. Next fight. Ooh, this is a really exciting one. In the light heavyweight division, we got Glover Teixeira versus Jared Cannonier. Cannonier looked really good in his last fight, beating Jan Kutaleba, who's known for bringing a hellacious pace. And what was shocking with that fight is Cannonier actually outpaced Kutalaba and had a lot more energy than him in the 3rd round. He was letting Kutalaba swing on him with his hands down. He just felt completely confident in that fight. Glover, I'm not remembering his last fight. Do you remember?
Anthony Johnson. He beat him.
Ooh.
Anthony Johnson knocked him out.
Yeah, he's coming off a 13-second knockout. You're right.
Yeah.
Glover's a good fighter. I do want to see how he comes off of that 13-second knockout. It's kind of a game changer to get knocked out that quick and see if your mental space is still there.
So Jared Cannonier, as a prospect in the division, only has lost 1 time. Glover is a veteran in the division coming off of a knockout loss. Another exciting fight. All right, next fight, middleweight. Ronaldo Souza, Jacare versus Tim Boetsch.
The alligator, weird matchup.
Well, he needed a fight. He's been on the shelf for a while there, asking for a fight. Tim Boetsch, I believe, coming off of a win.
You're right. He is coming off of a win, knockout. I can't remember.
Rafael Natal.
Yep, against Natal, where he was the underdog. This is a fight where, in my opinion, and you can tell me if you agree, Dema, I think this is an everything to lose for Jacare and everything to win fight for Tim Boetsch.
I agree with you 100%. But Ronaldo, Jacare is in a position where he hasn't fought in a long time. He's been asking for a high-profile fight, and he hasn't gotten any fight. So he needs this fight. But like you said, a lot to lose for him here.
Dema, if you were Jacare, would you just wait around for the title shot? Would you wait? Bisping's fighting Romero, I believe. Would you just wait for the result of that fight, or do you think he's doing the right thing?
He's taking a risk, but in this sport, taking risks pays off. You stay relevant if he's able to come in there and have an impressive showing against Tim Boetsch. But again, this is a big risk. To answer your question, no, I wouldn't stay on the sideline. This is a sport that moves fast, and you should stay relevant. And in this landscape of people getting bigger fights over the hierarchy of where people need to fight and clear contendership, it's hard to establish that.
And part B of that question is, how big of a threat do you see Tim Boetsch as?
Tim Boetsch is one of those guys that can come in there and just give you a really bad night. I mean, it depends what kind of Tim Boetsch we see. If this is the kind of Tim Boetsch that we saw fight against Yushin Okami, Jacare may very well have a problem.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think Jacare should be a heavy favorite. Let me find this bet line real fast.
But Jacare's grappling is world class. He is one of the best middleweight fighters to this day. In my opinion, he should have been fighting for the, or at least had a chance to fight for the title.
The bet line on this fight is Jacare Souza is minus 500. We got Tim Boetsch at plus 350. In my opinion, I think that's a really good line if you're going to take the alligator. It's going to be really hard for him to lose to Tim. One thing Boetsch brings every time is a lot of power. He's got that ability to one-punch knock out somebody. But if we're judging skills for skills, it's not even close. It's kind of an insult to give Ronaldo Jacare Souza Tim Boetsch in the first place, in my opinion. Next fight, Zach's favorite fighter, introducing legendary Anderson Silva, facing on Derek Brunson. Anderson said he wanted the big fights. He said he wanted the money fights. So here's presented the money fight, Derek Brunson.
Yeah, kind of a head scratcher. Like what?
What's the big fight?
Hi, back.
Well, what do you think about this fight?
A bit of a head scratcher for me. I mean, Derek Brunson is coming off of a tough loss against Robert Whittaker, where he didn't necessarily fight the most intelligent fight. And Anderson Silva is kind of known to be able to take advantage of people's mistakes. He's a deadly counter-striker. But then again, Anderson has been fighting forever.
Well, Derek Brunson, he came in real stupid his last fight. He was fighting Robert Whittaker. He fought different than I ever remember him fighting. Typically, he's a really good wrestler. He's got good skills. It looks like the odds makers, they didn't put too much stock into that last fight. They still have it Derek Brunson as a slight favorite, minus 135, Anderson Silva plus 105. So they understood Derek Brunson came in stupid. They realized that. They kind of took account into that. But like Dema said, if he comes in stupid versus Anderson Silva, it's not going to be a good night. But I do think, especially looking back on the Daniel Cormier fight, Anderson Silva's always struggled with really good wrestlers. And Derek Brunson, I'm a friend with him on the Facebook. So I look at his posts. So I know this is a big deal to him. Like, he knows if he can beat Anderson Silva, that's going to put his name on the map. So,
and rightfully so. I mean, it's Anderson Silva, one of the biggest legends in the sport.
So he's approaching this fight differently than anyone that he's ever approached in his life. And I'm sure he wants to brush off his back how he fought that last fight. I mean, that was not a good look. That's not how you want to be remembered. And I saw him posting about that too. He's been in the gym ever since that happened, and he's getting better.
Always exciting to see Anderson Silva fight. See how he does in his return. I think Derek Brunson is a good opponent for him, and this is a good chance for Derek Brunson to go out there and kind of remedy his loss against Whittaker and perform.
Yeah, it's a fight a lot of MMA fans want to see, I believe. Let's go into our main event. We got We got the female inauguration of the 145-pound title. We got Holly Holm versus Germaine de Randemie in what might possibly be the two most accomplished women outside of martial arts that are competing currently in martial arts.
I was going to say probably the best strikers in a 135 division that are big enough to fight at 145.
Yeah, and these girls, they wanted to be in 145 anyways.
Yeah, the weight cut.
It was because UFC had one division that they didn't even have the option of 145. So that's basically why they were fighting down there. These were the bigger girls at that weight class. Let's go over skill for skill. How do you think they match up?
Clear advantage to hands to Holly. Clearly, she's a boxer here. Looks to me maybe as the Randemie is a more balanced striker, considering she's coming from a kickboxing, Muay Thai background. However, Holly has been also competing in Muay Thai. So, man, as far as their striking experience, their MMA experience, I would say this is almost dead even.
I agree with you about the dead even. I do disagree with you about Holly's got better hands. It's kind of what I was going over last episode. Just because it says boxer on the underneath the fighter does not mean that she's going to necessarily be a better boxer than Germaine. You got to understand, this girl was 45-0 in Muay Thai. When she grabs a hold of you and hits you in the Muay Thai clinch, she's one of the most deadly women I've seen in the Thai clinch. She's got kicks. She could use all 8 of her weapons, and I don't think we should be underestimating her boxing by any means.
And so can Holly. I think they're just on a different level.
I agree. A lot of people underestimate Holly Holm's wrestling game, and I think she'll actually have the advantage in the wrestling and the submission department versus Germaine. I do think it's going to be an interesting fight standing up. I think Holly's going to be going a little bit more for point scoring, and I think Germaine's going to be trying to finish the fight from the start to the 5th round.
Skills aside, Holly is coming from a more established fight camp, Greg Jackson. Definitely one of the best game planning camps out there. There was talk that she was going through some personal things as far as her last fight, and that she was very focused and ready to kind of remedy that last performance.
Good card overall. Just really excited about the main event, co-main event. Jacare versus Tim Boach, Glover Teixeira versus Cannonier. Good fight overall. Very good main card. A fight. A lot of fights the fans are looking forward to seeing.
And as well as a few interesting ones on the prelim cards.
Next, we're going to go over some recent MMA news and fight rumors. Right after UFC Fight Night 104, Bermudez vs. Korean Zombie, Dana White was asked about the next title challenger at 115 to Joanna Jędrzejczyk's title. He said that Jessica Andrade is the definite number 1 challenger, according to Mr. Dana White.
Who could disagree with him after a performance like that?
There have been some disagreements on the internet, though, Dema. People don't like the fact that she hasn't beat the girls in the top 4. But at the same time, you got to give new fights to Joanna. You can't just keep throwing those 4 girls in there.
Yeah, I was going to say Joanna beat everyone that has been thrown in her way, and Randemie is not Randemie. Fuck.
No, this is Jessica Andrade.
Jessica Andrade is the one exception.
I agree. Jessica, even though she's not the clear number 1, I think that might go to Gadelha. Gadelha's had plenty of chances at. And we want to see new blood in there. I meant to say she had plenty of chances at Joanna. And we want to see new blood in there. And we know Andrade is going to cause some problems for Joanna, especially when it gets in that against the fence where Andrade is just a pit bull. And she's a little bit sloppier than Joanna. She's going to eat a lot of jabs. Angela Hill was tagging her quite a bit. So I'm not overly thrilled with her chances in that one.
I think Angela Hill was able to show some weaknesses that Joanna can go back, rewatch the fight, and be able to take advantage of in the upcoming fight.
Yeah, because let's be honest. I mean, Hill is a good Muay Thai striker, But she's nowhere on the level of Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
No.
Our next bit of news, we have a rumored fight between Demian Maia and Nick Diaz. Part 2 of this rumor is Tyron Woodley says that Nick Diaz actually turned down a fight with him. He was offered the fight and turned it down. I don't know the validity of this claim. I'd have to check a couple more sources. But what do you think about the rumor fight between Demian Maia and Nick Diaz? I hear there's a high possibility of this actually going down.
Man, I like this fight. Nick Diaz is coming back from a long suspension with the whole pot thing where he was kind of unjustly fined and given a longer sentence considering some of the other offenses happening in the sport. Kind of up and down roller coaster for him. Recently became eligible to fight again. And if Demian Maia is the fight for him, this is a very good fight for Diaz. Both guys are very established in their grappling and their jiu-jitsu. Maia, however, I think is on a few levels above him. As far as striking, Nick Diaz would clearly have the advantage in his boxing. You have anything to add?
Yeah, I was really like this matchup. I think it's a good way for Nick Diaz to come back. I think that Demian Maia is not only the best jiu-jitsu player in that weight class, he's the best jiu-jitsu player in the whole UFC and probably of MMA history, I would like to say. And Nick Diaz is also a wizard on the ground. I mean, he's nowhere on the same credential level as Demian Maia. I don't see why in a UFC fight he can't handle his own. If you remember that fight way back with Gomi, he was doing some stuff on the ground that still. What do you call him with omoplata at the end? Gogoplata. And he's still one of the only guys to ever pull that off in an MMA match. Good fight back, and if he wins that, it puts him right back into contention.
I have some things to add. I don't think this is a good fight for Maia in the sense of the guy has been long overdue to fight for a championship belt. Granted, Nick Diaz is a money fight, so I can see that being lucrative for him, while they do Wonder Boy Woodley too. Good fight. I like it.
Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson in a division that's been falling apart. They recently cut Ali Bagatonov. They cut a couple other guys in there. Zach Makovsky got cut.
The division is falling apart because he's picking everyone off of it.
And you could argue they're cutting guys that are some of the best guys in the world at that weight class. Like, they should not be cutting Bagatinov. They should not be cutting Makovsky.
Well, Ali got popped, so there might be some steroid controversy there or whatever. But Zach Makovsky is a head scratcher.
But the champ of that division, Demetrius Johnson, I guess he's running out of fights in that division. They just did a show to find him a contender. Wilson Hayes is fighting on this next card, but not scheduled to fight Demetrius. So Demetrius Johnson has said he's open to a potential fight with Cody Garbrandt. Interesting one. With the way Cody looked against Dominic, I think Cody would probably go in as the favorite to that one. He's probably a little bit more scrappy. Mighty Mouse has the longest streak of any UFC champion of all time. But what do you think? Do you think that he beats Cody, or?
I have to disagree with you here. I think Demetrius Johnson is pound for pound one of the best fighters there is. With his body of work, he's been hella impressive, and you can't deny that. Cody is hot right now. He's put on a couple of really good performances, as well as upsetting Dominic Cruz in such a spectacular fashion. I just don't think he has the experience and the skills to beat this guy.
So you're saying that Demetrius Johnson, you feel, is a little bit better than Cody Garbrandt, Dominic Cruz, and the guys of that division, TJ Dillashaw, John Lineker?
I think the extra weight might be an issue for him, but he's so quick. He's so good. One of the best, well-rounded fighters to fight. And, I mean, you can't deny that.
Can't deny his skills. He's a heck of a fighter. he's proved that over and over with his 11 title defenses now.
Yeah, and Cody is really, really good too. Don't get me wrong. It's just if I had to pick one or the other guy, I think Demetrius Johnson wouldn't go out and challenge the guy he didn't truly believe he could beat.
All right, this next topic, I think my co-host is going to go over a little bit more than me. I missed a lot of it. Alex Jones was on the Joe Rogan podcast talking some of his nonsense. Apparently
that was crazy as shit.
Him and Joe Rogan are good buddies. He had Alex Jones on. He had the two brain cell Eddie Bravo on, and they did a podcast. The one thing, I'll go over the one thing that stood out to me, because I didn't watch much, and I'll let you give your overall synopsis of it. But for me, like, there was one part where they're talking about scientists, and Alex Jones is talking about how they're trying to hide science from us. And Joe Rogan's like, no, not exactly. They're not hiding science. You can find the stuff. And Eddie Bravo, you could tell he's high as a kite. A couple times he'd go off and... and, you know, and he goes out of the blue. He's like, hey, Joe. Imagine if it was Tony Montana. If it was Tony Montana, he wouldn't be giving that shit out.
I hear you. Yeah, he's a little crazy, but look who's calling the pot kettle black here about as far as stepping off to the side and smoking.
I hear you. but no, and Joe Rogan's like, but we're not talking about Tony Montana. We're talking about science. It just like the whole thing was weird. Alex Jones wanted to punch him in the arm at the end. He wanted Eddie Bravo to punch him in the arm. Eddie Bravo's talking about movies and stuff. Eddie, he's one of the weirdest guys. He's even weirder than Alex Jones to me. But what did you watch the whole thing, didn't you?
I mean, it was on in the background while I was designing some things and working on editing the last podcast. But yeah, it's crazy shows. Typical shit you hear from Alex Jones. Sometimes he says shit that are spot on, and other shit is just gonna make you sit there and be like, what?
Did you learn anything?
Yeah, surprisingly, it was like overly too supportive of Trump. What else?
Yeah, I caught those bits and pieces. He loves Trump. He believes Trump's the guy that's going to change everything. And that's kind of been his angle from the start, though. That's how he got famous. So I understand that. So he's got to stick to it. It's like a wrestler. You got to stick to your script, you know. You got to stick to your character. And he's just staying in character.
And Alex Jones has just said so much crazy shit before that some of it will stick, some doesn't.
Yeah, check it out for yourself. It's a good podcast. It's definitely different than a lot of the MMA podcasts you hear. They talked about a lot of news and stuff. And let's wrap it up here. I just want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Zach for producing. Dema, you want to thank anybody?
I want to thank all of our listeners. Thank you for sticking with us. This is episode 2, just getting started. We are hopefully getting better at this. We had a bit of an issue where we think we ran the show a little bit too long last time. So we tried to kind of move this one along a little bit better and move from one point to another. Again, taking all of y'all's valuable feedback and applying it here. We'd like to do the same thing for the next episode. So if there's anything that you guys want to add to this as far as feedback, we will gladly hear you out and try to make this thing better.
Thanks for listening, guys. Hope you enjoy your week. Thanks for catching us. Thanks for checking us out.
Dema and Genya, out.